Last time I showed you a pellet stove that turned into a wood stove. This time we're looking at a wood stove that turns into a pellet stove. And with the pellet stove attachment, this thing throws heat. It's 5 degrees outside, negative 15 degrees Celsius, and it's t-shirt weather in here. It's only been going for about 45 minutes, and I had to take my flannel off. It's wicked hot. I'm sweating. So this is the butterfly stove from Greenstove. It's got some really cool features, like these collapsible shelves / carry handles on the side of it. If you lift them up this way, you can pick the stove up. A really cool feature about this stove is the pipes. They're solid stainless steel pipes, but they collapse into themselves, which is rather cool. It's got 2 different size pipes, and one pipe fits inside the other, and then they all fit inside the stove. But the best part, you turn it into a pellet stove. It's got these cool decorative handles on the front. Allows you to open the door. Also, the air intake on the bottom has one of those cool handles too. That's also the handle to pull the ash pan out. All right, so here's the Greenstove butterfly with the pellet burner and hopper attachment. Before we get into my findings on this pellet stove attachment on this wood stove, I need 2,359 more subscribers to reach 25,000 subscribers by New Year's. I know it's a lot to ask. We are 9 days away from New Year's. Please subscribe to the channel. If you're watching this video, you find it useful at all, please subscribe. Help me get to 25K. Give me a Christmas miracle, guys, please. My goal was 20,000, but I reached that, so now I want 25, and I'll give away a stove and a tent if we hit 25 by New Year's. So the pellet stove attachment. This is sold separately from the butterfly stove. When you buy the pellet stove attachment with the pellet hopper, it comes with 4 extra pipes. Because with a pellet stove, with it burning down, you need enough draw in order to continue that burn and not come up into the pellet hopper. So they include 4 more pipes to make your stovepipe super long. I mean, look how long this stovepipe is. It's got to be a good 15 feet, at least 15 feet high. One con about this style pellet stove is once the fire comes down into the stove, it goes right up the chimney. And as you can see in that video of the stovepipe outside, there is a lot of heat coming out of that chimney. The fire, I don't know how high the fire goes up into the chimney, but a lot of that heat goes right up that chimney too. So that's one con about this style pellet stove on a wood stove. But again, this is a wood stove with a pellet stove attachment. It's not a pellet stove with a wood stove feature. It's a wood stove that you can put a pellet stove onto. Just like Greenstove's pellet stove, it has automatic air intake ports that open up when you fill it with pellets. And then once the pellets burn down to here, they close up. These air intakes close up, and then air's sucked in from the top of the hopper. And that reduces your chance of smoke and fire coming up into the hopper. And stick around to the end, and I'll talk about my biggest con of this pellet hopper with this wood stove, because it might be a big con for you. But before that, let's talk about the pros. A pro, this hopper fits more than a whole bag of pellets in it. You can put about 45 pounds of pellets in here. One bag is 40 pounds, then it leaves about this much space up top, maybe a little less, to hold a little extra in there. Why is that important? Because you could fit 40 pounds of pellets in this thing. A large hopper doesn't guarantee a long burn time. So let's get into my findings on the burn times. Speaking of burn times, burn count 1. One pro of this stove, it's got huge glass windows on 3 sides of it. So it throws, I think that's radiant heat from the light. It throws that heat out like crazy. Currently it's 5 degrees outside Fahrenheit, or negative 13 degrees Celsius. But since this pellet stove has one setting, which is sweat your balls off because it's hot, right now I have the back of this tent closed off. So I'm sitting in a tent that's about 6 feet by 10 feet long. And it is wicked nice in here. Very comfortable. It's not t-shirt weather. I still have my jacket on, my flannel. But it is wicked cold outside. So that tells you how warm this wood stove, pellet stove, is throwing heat. It does a good job. And I feel windows in a wood stove really releases that heat from the stove. It doesn't retain heat, but it throws the heat that's in there out of the stove and into your tent, and that's freaking awesome. Being able to watch this fire is wicked cool. It comes down from the top of the stove and then hits the bottom and fans out. It's a really cool burn. Burn count 2. Burn count 3. If you didn't know, these shelves get hot, so you don't want to touch those like that. With the pellet stove attachment, you need to have all of the air intakes on the stove itself closed off. You can't have other air forced into the stove because it creates negative pressure on the burner. Let's see if I can show you that. Here's the air intake down here. If I open that up, it should create negative pressure. And then start burning up. You see, did you see the smoke come out of there? I'm gonna close that. I don't want that to happen. You don't want that to happen. That's a big no-no. That will cause this to start flaming outside of these air intakes and then up into your hopper. So you gotta make sure everything else is closed on the stove so that the only air getting sucked in is right here. I have been messing around with the damper on the pipe itself to try to slow this burn down. And you can, but you can't close it all the way. If you can see the flames right now, I'm gonna turn it down just slightly, about a quarter closed. Actually, that's about half closed right there. And it toned that fire down a lot. That can increase your burn time to about 10 to 12 hours, depending on the setting of this damper right here. But if it's damped down too much, you can start to get smoke up into this hopper. If you restrict the draft too much, that's when you start getting problems. They recommend having it open all the way, I believe. I read the instructions, but I forgot. I recommend you keep that open at nighttime. You do not want to close that down at night until you get a hang of this stove, because you can force smoke up into this hopper if you restrict the draft too much. So this is a quarter closed. That's wide open. And automatically the fire starts getting bigger. If I close the damper completely, now that is damper closed. You can see how slow that burn is, and I guarantee that will cause problems with this hopper. So you don't want to close the damper off completely. I haven't tried moving the damper pipe up above the hopper, but I will try that in my further testings. So with my testing of the damper being closed slightly, not fully, when I got past halfway, after hours of burning, I did end up getting smoke up into this hopper. Opening that damper up to a quarter, so I'd say that is about half on the damper. Opening it up to a quarter closed fixed the smoke up in the hopper and gave me about a 10.5 to 11 hour burn time. I don't have a whole lot of time in testing in this hopper, but I'm going to continue my testing, and I'll leave all those findings in a pinned comment and in the description as I continue testing this. Wide open, I get just under 7 hours of burn time. That's 40 pounds of hardwood pellets for about 7 hours of burn time. That's a good night's sleep right there, guys. That's pretty nice. What's cool about this, you burn in one through the day. Once it's about an hour before bedtime, you let the fire burn out. You switch to your pellet attachment. You throw a bag of pellets in there. You get those going, and then you get 7 hours of sleep if you have this on high. This thing throws heat when it's on high. Like I said, it is sweat your balls off on high setting. It's pretty crazy. So let's talk about the biggest con I found with this wood stove, pellet stove combo. It's your cook surface. With the pellet burner and hopper here, you are very limited to about 4 inches in front of it. Holy crap. That was almost bad. And about 5 inches behind it. So your pot size is very limited when you're burning pellets. That's why this may be best for nighttime when you're sleeping, when you're not trying to cook. So that's the biggest con I found of this pellet stove. Not to mention the lack of being able to cool it down and slow the burn time. It does have these two fins right here. And when you close them down, what it does is it closes the cage on the inside just slightly. I mean like tiny inches, centimeters, millimeters actually. And that does slow it down, but not a whole lot. That's the most adjustment you have with this burner right here is just these two little fins here. I mean, if you noticed, it does slow the burn, but it doesn't slow the burn time much. It just, I don't know, it's weird. So it does slow the burn time down, but not a whole lot. I wish we had more of an option to slow this down, but maybe for safety purposes, they haven't developed a way to do that yet with this style burner. I'm not sure. I'm not a scientist or a stove developer, so I cannot comment on how dampening this burner down would affect it or how to do that. I don't know. If you like this sort of thing, please think about subscribing to the channel, guys. I want to get to 25K. Make it a Christmas miracle for me. Thanks a lot for watching. Do I think this is worth the money or just funny? If you're looking for an all-night burn with no hassle of having to get up, totally worth the money. Pellets are so easy and pretty cheap to burn, to be honest. But you will go through 3 bags of pellets if you're only burning pellets in your hot tent. In one day, you'll go through almost 3 bags of pellets. So keep that in mind. It still may be cheaper than buying wood if that's your option, because wood is expensive. Pellets are kind of cheap. Thanks for joining me on this pellet stove, wood stove adventure. See you guys in the next one. Subscribe to the channel, guys. Give this video a like. Share it with your friends. Share it everywhere. This is pretty cool. Thanks, Greenstove, for sending this to me. Merry Christmas, everybody.